brutal mountain ultramarathons on Earth, the 106-miler UTMB. Your body is screaming for sleep. Your muscles are on fire. And instead of taking a nap like the competitors around you, you pause at a medical station to breastfeed your 3-month-old baby. That iconic viral image of our guest today didn't just stop the world and in its tracks. It shattered every preconceived limitation about what women, mothers, and endurance athletes are capable of. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Track webinar in the run-up to the 15th edition of the NMDC Hyderabad Marathon. Today, we aren't just talking about running. We are talking about a global revolution. Long-distance running is experiencing an unprecedented surge among women worldwide. Historically, women were barred from marathons under the myth that their bodies couldn't handle the strain. Today, women are not just participating, they are dominating, breaking records, and rewriting the science of endurance. Whether you're an elite athlete pushing your physical limits, a casual runner training for your first half marathon, a mother balancing family and fitness, or someone simply looking to build radical resilience in your professional and personal life, this space is for you. You belong here. Get ready to find your own why and unlock the endurance inside you. Please join me in welcoming the double Guinness World Record holder, whose work has inspired race organizers and runners around the world to rethink what true inclusivity looks like, the extraordinary Sophie Power. Hello, Sophie.
Hi, what introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
So, though most people know you because of that one iconic photograph, but I'm sure your journey started long before that. Could you tell us about your early life, how you discovered endurance sport, and what drew you to ultra running?
So I think the first thing to note is I was not sporty at school. I was actually second last in my class when I was 14 and we had to run the mile. I was second last. So I've not always been an elite athlete. It's a very different journey from a lot of the people you see online and in kind of Great Britain vests that I wear now. And I put this label on myself, you're not a runner. That's not you. You can't run. You're so rubbish at this. You're never going to try. And so many years passed. And I would do things when I was at university and I joined a rowing crew. And it was a mile to the boathouse in the morning and the crew would run together. And I didn't believe I could run that mile. So I got up early. As a student, I got up even earlier than I had to walk. And this belief in me that I couldn't do it was smashed apart when I was 26 and I was made redundant from a job in finance. And my friend said he'd just done the Marathon des Sables, which is a 6-day event across the Sahara Desert. And he said to me, "You're really good at hiking." And I grew up hiking. My grandmother's from the north of England where we have these mini mountains. They're not quite mountains. And I knew I could walk well. And he said, "Everyone walks. It's hot. Everyone walks." And I signed up with 9 months to train and get to the start line. I'd started a bit of running and realized I was good at this. And I was so angry that for so many years, that one episode at school and not being good at sport at school had just made me believe that I couldn't do it now. And I think as I look to SheRaces, I take so much of that history and that understanding of what it feels like to be at the back, to not believe that you can do something. I understand what it is like to win a world championship and break a world record, but I understand the other side too. So I did some races around the world, these stage races, and then built my way up through ultras and only really took it seriously after I had my third baby.
So elite endurance sport demands resilience, but motherhood brings a different kind of strength. You have achieved Guinness records, not one, but two. In May 2024, you became the fastest woman to run across Ireland in 3 days and 12 hours. In January 2025, You ran 370.9 kilometers for about 48 hours on a treadmill. And all this was after you've had your 3 children. So, how did becoming a mother reshape your perspective as both an athlete and as a person?
Oh, motherhood has been, I mean, it's crazy. I wonder like what I did with my time before I was a mother. Because everything now is packaged into this small bits of time. You make the most of everything. But before I had children, I did these 6-day races and I realized that I couldn't do this again. I can't go away so much time away from my children. And so I started running the longer races nonstop. So I started focusing on 100-mile races or 100 miles in the mountain, which you can fly the day before. You do the race, you fly home, you're maybe away 3 or 4 days. So that's how I stepped out then. And I realized that, when I ran UTMB, I was the best person prepared on the start line for sleep deprivation because you go through it with your newborn. Like I was used to being up all night. This was going to be easy. At least I wasn't going to have a crying baby and trying to problem solve the baby. I was just going to have to put one foot in front of the other. I think it makes you so much better at multitasking, at juggling, at prioritizing. And for me, the sport, and I recently published a book, The Power Within, and I had to go back on why was this so important to me? And running was the only time I had to myself, where I only had to think about myself, or I could process my thoughts. And signing up to these big events was an excuse to put that training time in. So the event was important, but the training time was just as important for my mental health as well as my physical health. But you do find that mothers, when I'm out on a race, I only have to look after me. And sometimes even I have a crew and they're looking after me. And in everyday life, I have 3 children and a husband, and SheRaces and work. And running just is so much easier than my normal life.
So running is your me time.
Absolutely.
So, what lessons from ultra running have proved equally valuable in leadership, advocacy, and everyday life?
Oh, so much. There are so many parallels between ultra running, and I draw on them so many times. I think in life, we all have challenges, and sometimes it feels that there's no way forward from that challenge, and we don't know and we're definitely not going to be able to do something. And sport is such a powerful lens because it's so simple and we all understand it. And I look back to all those times in races where I didn't think I could finish, where I knew I didn't think I could run that time. I couldn't make that cutoff. I couldn't do something. And then I did. And that gives me so much more confidence going into normal life to go, there's a challenge that's not running, but I think I can take it on. I think on how I structure a start line and I prepare, and I want to do everything I can not to fail and have those things in my control. So kind of making sure I've done my training, I've got my kit together, and I use that in normal life. Just even with the kids go, we need to think about everything we have today. And they learn to be kind of good at logistics, good at planning, good at kind of being calm when things go bad, good at putting things into perspective, which is quite hard sometimes often I'm in something and I'm like, this is an awful meeting I'm in. And I'm like, look, at least it's not 2 a.m. I'm running out of water. I've got 5 miles to the checkpoint. So there's so much. But I think in advocacy, with SheRaces, sport is just such a clear lens. And everything that applies in sport also applies in life. And the reason SheRaces is so powerful is it's such an easy way for especially men to see that women are not the same as men.
Oh, nicely put. So going back to that image of you breastfeeding your son during the UTMB, which became a global symbol, at that moment, you were just simply trying to take care of your child. What surprised you most about the global response to that photograph?
Oh gosh, I mean, that photograph, I didn't think I was doing anything unusual. I really didn't. I had a goal. Like I'd had a place at UTMB 4 years before, and I'd fought so hard for that place with all my points and trying to get into the ballot, and lost the place because I was pregnant. It took me 4 years to get another place. And for me, being on that start line was the obvious thing I was going to do. And I thought I was just going to try and run 10K. And I luckily had a very quick recovery from pregnancy. I could not have done that with either of my other pregnancies. So this is not something you can do at 3 months postpartum. And I try and shy away from telling people that they should follow in my footsteps this way. But for me, it was just, I had this goal and I was going to have a go and see where it got me to. And I think all I thought that the picture would do was, in releasing it, because it's a very personal picture, was that the race organizer would see it and think she deserved that opportunity a year later when she was truly fit and ready to race, not to complete, to race. And what surprised me most, I think, is we have the breastfeeding side, and how many women are not confident breastfeeding in public, and how the culture globally has made women feel uncomfortable doing the most natural thing in the world. So that got me really angry. And I love the fact that a lot of women are like, I'm going to breastfeed in public now because it's a baby and it needs to be fed. I'm not hiding away. Some people feel they have to hide in toilets. You shouldn't be breastfeeding in a toilet. But I think the big one was the women that didn't feel they could take time for themselves. That when you become, I wasn't on social media. So I think I was immune or protected from so many of the pressures that new mothers face, which is that you should be only mother. And you yourself before, that's lost, that's taken away from you. You are just mother. And I know I'm a much better mother when I have my own goals, when I'm physically strong, mentally strong. I'm a role model. Now I have a daughter. I'm a role model. I'm a role model to my sons to show them how powerful women are. I take that really seriously. So for me, seeing just how many women, and it's a majority of women, a big majority of women, feel that they can't do things for themselves, even though it would make them a better mother. I think that was the big lesson that I took, and thinking, actually, there's something we have to do about this.
That's right. So, as you just said, many women we've seen, they say that the biggest barriers to participation are not physical, but social and structural. From your experience, what are the most common obstacles women face before they even reach the start line?
I mean, on a race themselves, I think firstly the same barriers I had as a child, thinking that we can't do it. We've been told we can't do it. I was a trustee of a charity called Women in Sport for 5 years. And we did a lot of research and insight work. And we did one on primary school girls. So girls 5 years old. At 5 years old, girls say that they're not as good at sport as boys, and that parents don't want them to do these sports and they're not taking part. And every time they get older, more girls drop out of sport. So we look at an adult woman looking at whether we can do a race. We have that whole history where we don't feel we can do it, even though we are all amazing and we can do so much more than we think we can. And I love the fact that tomorrow, when we have our SheRaces women's event, there'll be women that were doing couch to 5K. There weren't runners at the start of this year taking on a 50K. And they'll walk a lot and they'll walk and run, but they will do that. So I think not believing in ourselves because we've been sociologically brought up that way to not believe in ourselves. And then when we want that goal, giving ourselves the ability to take on that goal, to say, I'm going to take that time for myself. It's really difficult for women to say, I want to do something. And I believe I have the right to do something, because we always feel guilty. It's the mother's guilt that's so dangerous because it holds us back. And if I look at my kids and I say, would you like a little bit more time with mummy? Or do you want to see mummy breaking world records? I know exactly what they'd say.
Basically, believe in yourself and be a little bit selfish for yourself too. If you could change one misconception about pregnancy, motherhood, and endurance sport, what would it be?
I think there's a huge amount of research coming out, which is really helping on this now, because before you get pregnant and then you get told to sit on the sofa and eat cake for 9 months and then be very, very careful to get back. I think the new research is so powerful because it's been about risk. And, everything is a risk. Everything is a risk. You go for a run, that's a risk. The risk is not being physically active. We know that active mothers have healthier babies. My kids came out fit. They had bigger lungs, bigger hearts because I was active during pregnancy, and showing that if you're strong and fit, you'll have an easier labor and a better recovery to actually be that mum you want to be. So I think that's the big thing we have to keep getting out. And it's difficult because you have to go, we know the research and it's got to go through the health system, and women need to be supported to do that. But you have elite athletes coming back to compete at the highest levels who are training hard. I trained hard in my pregnancy. I was very careful not to get too hot, not to bump the bump. But other than that, exercise is really healthy, and especially strength training is really important because you're going to have this baby on your back. Carrying them around, you need to prepare for that. So I think that's the first one. And I think the getting back to where you want to be physically, I think there has to be much more support. And, when in the UK, you have a check at 6 weeks and you go to your doctor and they only ask questions about the baby. And giving birth is surgery. It's a high trauma event. And we deserve that support to get back because the children's activity level is linked to the mothers, not the fathers. So we're active parents. If we're active mothers, we'll have active children, and we know how good that is for their lives. So we have to support the women through pregnancy, and we have to support the mother afterwards. And that will help our children live more active lives.
So as we prepare for the 15th edition of the NMDC Hyderabad Marathon, we are proud to celebrate our association with SheRaces. So what inspired you to establish SheRaces, and what gap in the endurance sports landscape did you actually want to address?
The SheRaces is technically, I think it's about 5 years old this week. But that photo was taken almost 8 years ago. And the second after that photo, I had all these race directors saying, I didn't have a pregnancy deferral because I didn't think about it, because there isn't a woman on my organizing committee and no one's ever asked me for a pregnancy deferral, even though women obviously have become pregnant and not done my race. And so I started campaigning for pregnancy deferrals. And then I came up against London Marathon. And it was after COVID, and it was a year where there were 2 London marathons in a year. And this lady came to me and she said, I've got a place for the London Marathon, a championship place, and I'll be 8 weeks postpartum. And I've asked them to defer it to the next one that's 8 months. And they've said no. And so I think, of course, I'll message them. I'm on the board of Women in Sport. I'll message them. And they refused. And I realized that this was such a misunderstanding, and that they said she's asking for something, to have this extra kind of condition that she should get special as a woman. It's like, this is not special. They're like, the rules are equal for everyone. It's like, yeah, but equality is not equity. And we want equity. We want the same opportunity to perform as athletes. That's what we deserve. We're different from men. So that same opportunity looks different. And it suddenly struck me. And then I had my daughter. And I think there's something looking at her thinking, I want to see more women on start lines, and especially the longer events. We're underrepresented. I did a race which was 9% women. 9%. I looked around the start line. I couldn't see another woman. And I know the benefits to my life. So I start thinking, it's more than pregnancy deferrals. And we won the fight with London. They still charge you twice, but we won that. And there was so much positive press. So we start doing the research. Over 2,000 women, front of the pack, back of the pack, all ages, a full diversity, mostly UK based. And now I'm really excited that we get to do the research in other countries like India, but triathlon, swimming, running, to just work out what were these barriers and what could races easily do to remove them. Because a pregnancy deferral is almost free for an event to offer, but is so important to a woman. What else could they do? And that's where SheRaces came. It's a set of lots of detailed guidelines and advice, but really it's 8 simple things that don't cost a race director any money that they can do to get more women on their start line, give us that equitable experience, that great experience we all deserve when we race, and truly value the female competition as being separate from the men's.
Work with races of different sizes and cultures. Which changes have had the greatest impact while remaining practical for the organizers?
I think the thing about the guidelines is the simple ones are that any organizer can do. So the first one is, and these don't cost, the only cost in the guidelines is if you need to put a few more toilets in, which we know women love. We love toilets. We want proper clean toilets. So they always help your participation. But the first thing is looking at your imagery. Now open the website, and often it's a start line picture, and it's generally all men. And I don't feel I belong. So we just want to see imagery in your website and your marketing of all athletes, men and women, all shapes, all sizes, all ages, all abilities. That shows me, if I see myself there, I'm like, I belong there and I'll sign up. The same about the language. Often ultra marathons especially go biggest, baddest, toughest. You might die doing this. And that's great for a male market. But women want to know that we can finish. If we're going to invest that time and that money into something, we want to know we have a fair opportunity. What's the cutoff time? How can I do that? How fast do I need to be? Where do I need to be? Can I get there in time? All of those details. And our own event, we've seen the questions come in. Can I walk from the station? And we set it up. You can get there by public transport, because that's so important for women who maybe don't have a car, who want to be environmentally friendly. And then on the race day, and obviously pregnancy deferrals. And on the race day, if you're going to give a T-shirt out, make sure it also fits a woman. I have all these T-shirts that fit me when I was 37 weeks pregnant that my husband wears now. And, I ran the same race. I paid the same money. I deserve something that fits me. Looking at toilets. So separate female toilets with period products, because often you can't carry period products in the longer races. It's happened to me. My period has started unexpectedly. A place you can wash your hands, a place you could change a cup, if that's what you use, making it that we can actually take part. And for something like a triathlon, a proper secure changing facility, because a lot of women don't feel comfortable changing in public. And we shouldn't have to do that to take part in the race. And then after the race, looking at the results, splitting them out, female and male, giving the women's race the same media coverage, social media coverage than the men's have, the same prize money. It's very simple. It's two separate competitions happening, and that's very easy to do. So all of these things don't cost money. They're easy to do. And we know that the commercial research we've done with events show that you get so many more women on your start line. And the other thing is harassment. And I think that's the slightly darker side of what we work on is, sadly, there's a lot of unwanted behavior in events still, whether that's a comment, kind of for a woman to smile or hurry up or you're too slow, or that's some safety behavior that we have to be worried about, and making sure the event is prepared for that and that all athletes are told, what's okay and actually what's not okay. In a triathlon swim, we don't want to be swum over. We don't want people to be aggressive on the bike. If you make us feel comfortable, we will continue to participate. And that's why the women's only races are so special, to give women that confidence around women to then maybe take part in a mixed race afterwards.
Well, it would be safe to say there are races or race directors who would have limited budgets, and there are simple changes that can be made, which can be women friendly. Something as simple as, like you said, the imagery, the clean toilets for women, place to wash their hands, the language being more women friendly, not very aggressive, accessibility, and maybe zero harassment policy. These are things I'm sure which wouldn't really cost much. And of course, there's pregnancy deferral and all of those. So there are quite a few changes that races can bring about to make it more women friendly, is what I am hearing here. What does genuine inclusivity look like beyond facilities and policies? How do you create a culture where women feel they truly belong?
I think the first thing you do is you put a woman on the decision-making committee, and you make every decision that will affect a woman be made by a woman, and a woman who has understanding of a diversity of women. So sometimes you have a woman that's on the organizing committee, but they're an elite athlete, they're a fast athlete. Let's think about older women, younger women, kind of back of the pack women, women who just had babies. If you give us the power to be involved in the decisions, the right decisions will be made. And we've got a lot of races that now have a SheRaces ambassador, and it's their role to look at the event with our guidelines through a female lens, take lots of feedback and really activate that feedback and say, what can we do? There's also things you can't do, but there will be things that you can do. Sometimes you can't increase that cutoff because you've got to have a road closure at this road reopening at this time, but maybe they could continue on the pavement. Maybe they could start a little bit earlier. What can you do? So I think that it's just getting women involved, and that's true inclusivity, is taking every decision with women in mind and really thinking about not having one rule for everyone, because we are different, and especially because we go through motherhood, and especially because we have safety concerns that men don't think of. That's why you need to get women involved at the highest levels.
Great. So how can race organizers measure success and inclusion? Is it just simply increasing female participation, or are there any other broader indicators to this?
So there's lots. And I think we were talking to some races in the USA, and they go, well, we don't need to do any of this because, we already have 50% women in a shorter race. And so, we must be okay because we've got it. And it's like, have you thought about the experience of these women? They're not having the same experience that they could have. So I think yes, participation is a great data point, especially against other events in the same country of the same distance. You'd expect to have, in the UK, US, a majority of women on the start line of a 5K and a 10K. So if you don't have a majority, or it's not a big majority, maybe there's something that you're not doing right. So especially looking at the marathon distance, how do you get the percentage is important, but you can look at other things too. You can look at women who are slower athletes feeling comfortable to take part. How many of those women are kind of finishing the marathon after 5 hours, after 6 hours, after 7+ hours? Are you including those? Are you including a full range of athletes? But feedback is the big one. And it's how you ask the feedback that I think is important. Sometimes you get the click through and go, out of 10, how was the race? That's not going to teach you anything. And that's where the SheRaces research is so in depth, and it's so time consuming to read through. I think I read about 300 pages of stories when we first did the research, is saying what could be improved in your perfect race. What would happen? What did you like? Did you feel included? Do you ever think not safe? Some of these questions to really understand what women are actually feeling about the race, and would they recommend it to a friend? So the participation is a very kind of black and white number, but it's about so much more that you can really understand as an organizer. And what we've done is work with race directors and seen the change. So Abingdon Marathon in the UK, we work with them, simple changes. Even before an edition, they got 66% more women on the start line just signing up to the event, because of how they changed their website, how they changed how they talked, how they changed the logistics. And they sold out for the first time in 5 years. So we can look at those data. We can look at threshold, getting 50% women on ultra marathons, and the repeats, and even more men because they had so much positive coverage. You can track it over time, and you put changes in, and the change will make a difference.
So Hyderabad Marathon is now associated with SheRaces. What does that signal to runners, particularly women in India?
I think it's huge. I think it's such an iconic marathon. It's such an important marathon. And, races like Hyderabad set the tone for other events. It's come out and say, we support SheRaces. We believe that equity is important in events. And we know that that trickles down partly from the runners that will do the Hyderabad Marathon and then do their local races and say, hey, I want period products here. Actually, I understand what a great race looks like, and I'm going to give that feedback to a local race. But it also does to race organizers who look to the larger marathons for guidance for what's coming next? What are the top races doing? I'm going to do that. We know that working with UTMB, for example, that's so many countries in the world, the small trail races are now doing the policies. We know that in India, having Hyderabad say this is important, that's going to start taking off across the whole country. And we're looking forward to it being normal to have a pregnancy deferral, for normal for a woman to turn up and she'll expect to see those period products. That's when we've got the success in the country.
We are looking forward to this too. So at Hyderabad Runners, we have always believed that the marathon is only one weekend in a year, while the community engagement happens throughout the other 51 weeks. How important is it for running clubs, not just race organizers, to foster inclusive environments?
It's hugely important. I think running clubs often get it so wrong. I think I was too scared to sign up for my local running club. Actually, they didn't let me in. They let me in when I got a GB vest. They just kicked me out again because I can't compete for them because I'm too busy running for my country. But there's definitely an old school environment in running clubs. Often really experienced runners have set them up. And it's really intimidating for especially women, but I think also beginner men to say, I want to learn how to run. Where do I start? I want some guidance. I don't want to be injured. And to turn up to these clubs, we all have to start somewhere. And for running club to have I don't think I've couched a 5K is how we talk about it in the UK, but the 5K beginner program is so important because you're not going to bring those people through the club. So to be inclusive and really welcoming, and sometimes, women need a few sessions to think we can do something. And we always worry we're going to be the last or we'll be left behind. And to understand how women feel and how we can encourage them to maybe come and watch a session, or we're lucky to have parkrun in the UK that you can volunteer, you can walk at the back, and then you get that confidence. I think people who've been running a long time underestimate just how hard it is for someone who's had that label that I had for so long of not a runner to turn up to a session and try to run. It is so hard. And if we're inclusive and we actually encourage them, we can expand running so quickly, and it gives so many benefits to our lives.
Oh, yes, it can be very intimidating for a beginner. And so India has one of the world's fastest growing running communities. And what opportunities do you see for Indian races to become global leaders in inclusive event design?
I think it's huge. I think outside of the UK, SheRaces, India is the biggest country for SheRaces. And actually, when I speak to race directors, they're so progressive. And we have amazing events signing up all the time. And a huge thank you to Chennai Runners for leading this within India, harnessing SheRaces and saying we believe in it and we're going to support all the other events to take it on. I think some race organizer will be, well, I want to be the only one that's really good. But they've pushed it out and supported us. And we've got things like Capital Trails who are leading on trail running for inclusion for women, but also environmental. So I think India is super exciting. And I think it also in India, when I speak to people, they understand that this is not about sport. Like we talk about it's not really about period products. It's actually about a woman's role in society. And to have all these huge organizations say women are equal to men, and we want to demonstrate that within our race, knowing that that will carry forward to our lives at home, to business. That's so important. So for me, India is our flagship. Yes, we start in the UK because everyone knows me and it's very easy. But I think the strongest adoption for now is in India. And I'm really excited about what that impact will have on sports outside running. We talk about running all the time because that's where we started, but the guidelines apply across any mass participation event. And we work in paddleboarding, in sailing, in triathlon, swimming, skimo, crazy races. And we look forward to it being adopted outside and potentially further into team sports to make sure that women have the same facilities as men, starting to everyone involved in sports, starting to see that in a slightly different lens. It's very easy to understand in a running race why we might need different facilities. And it's a small step to understanding how we might have different things in society.
Okay, let's do a very quick, rapid fire, fun round. Let's get to know Sophie Power. So, one word that describes running, mountain or roads?
Mountains. I'm faster on the roads, but mountains.
Favorite recovery meal?
After a race, I love a burger and chips and a glass of red wine. Not normally, but after a race.
Biggest myth about women runners?
That we don't want to do hard things.
Or you can't do it?
Yeah.
Favorite race anywhere in the world?
I mean, I'm taking on bad water, but I think because of how it changed my life, it probably has to be UTMB.
Hardest race you've ever done?
The one where I put myself in a coma in Cambodia was probably the hardest. But possibly I would say TDS, which is a more technical version of UTMB.
One leadership lesson from motherhood?
Don't sweat the small stuff. You can only change what you can change.
Great. So, okay, going on. How do you see road running evolving over the next decade? What role will technology, community, and changing lifestyles play?
Oh, it's already happening. I think I'm invited into lots of conferences and hearing about the community and the platforms and the social media side of the events and why people are getting out. I think if we look back in kind of decades ago, it was about super fast athletes and times, and now it's very much about getting the youth involved, getting us all different ages, everyone together, and gamifying in a way. And kind of it's very much kind of how do we increase that participation and why is it good for us? And acknowledging that people run for different reasons and you don't have to care about your time. And you could just want that sense of community. When we talk about the SheRaces race, like why are people doing it? It's for happiness, for belonging, for time with friends. So I see it changing. I see lots of different formats appearing where it's like a fun thing where you don't know what the distance is, where you have to go and do little things. I see the marathons increasing in size, absolutely, because it's such an amazing day. But lots of different ways of getting there, lots of different running groups, lots of different ways to experience the sport. I think hybrid, more trail running, I think is really exploding because you get that beautiful time in nature as well. But I can't see our sport slowing down. I think there'll be lots of silly technology wearables that people don't need. And I worry that the sport will get more expensive. And you'll think you have to have a watch and a heart rate monitor and these headphones and this to take part. And I worry that, really we need a pair of trainers and we need to get out on the trails and their confidence to get out on the trails to do that. That's what we need. But it's exciting. It'll be more globally connected, more incredible races that will start to come, more people doing community running. I think, do you have park run in India?
Not the free
5K.
No, no, not the exact same version. But we do have 5K runs, but no, not the free 5K. Not as much as it's done in the UK.
I think eventually governments will realize that running is a health benefit, as the UK have done. And we have this park run, which is a free 5K in most towns in the UK. You can turn up, there's no cutoffs. And I see running really being integrated into most countries in the world because it's so easy to do. And you just get these amazing lifelong benefits and a lower health bill for the government.
That's right. I'm also going to start taking in few audience questions, viewer questions. So the first one is from Anju Patel, one of our senior mentors from Hyderabad Runners. Her question is, how do you manage your work-life balance and continue to be so strong and an inspiration to all women around you?
Balance that is the question. I think I'm not always in balance. I think the first thing you have to do is stop comparing yourself to other people. Our lives are all unique, and there are all these training programs that are clearly written for, kind of single men that are 22 years old that have a lot more time than I do. So I do what I can do, and I'm happy with that, and I accept that. And this morning I got up to do an hour's treadmill before the kids got up. I'm very lucky to have a treadmill and a little gym at home that I can do that and have that flexibility. When they were babies, I had the baby monitor on the treadmill. I put them for a nap. I go to the treadmill. Multitasking, sorry, is so important. The only way I can actually kind of get things done is by kind of running to things, running from things, kind of meeting at like kind of getting in the middle of kind of the strength training while I'm in the park, while I'm kind of watching them do things. It's fitting it in and being kind of effective with it. And some days I can't do it. Some days I just can't do it. And that's okay. I'm being kind to myself, because this isn't my job. I run for Great Britain, but you don't get paid to run 24 hours for Great Britain. And for me, sometimes taking the time to work on SheRaces, I work stupid hours. I think I start work about 11 o'clock every night, and I only watch TV if it's on the treadmill. I'm watching Indian Traitors at the moment, which is amazing. So no one tell me what happens. But I think for me, it's about impact now. And it's far more important to me that I get another woman across the finish line than I get across mine. And that's starting to change the balance of what I do. But I've got bad water in 3 weeks. So the balance shifts a bit, and the balance shifts up and down and ebbs and flows. And when the kids need me more, I'm straight with the kids. But we can all do amazing things. But sometimes it's about looking at your schedule for the week and going, where can I fit things in? And for me, having a running coach is so important, because she tells me what I have to fit in, and I see as a challenge to what can I move to make sure I do 80%, because 80% is good enough.
Right. Our next question is from Avik Pal. He's a very avid runner and a coach here in Hyderabad. His question is, you paired with sports scientists to track your physiological decay during multi-day records. What did that female-specific data reveal about pacing or recovery that contradicted male-centric data?
Oh, I'm obviously a study of one. So you can't quite look at a study of one. We need to get far more research into women in general in science. There's only 6% of sports studies that are only conducted on women. And we are different with the menstrual cycle. We are different, and so much more needs to be done. I think the big learning for me, that I have very high fat oxidation. So I burn a lot of fat. I don't need to eat as much as others do. Maybe that's partly being female, maybe because I built that up over many, many years of running very slow miles. I love running very slowly and chatting away or listening to music. So I'm good at that. I think the big one on the data was recovery. And you have a physical recovery and you have a nervous system recovery. And physically, after the treadmill world record, like, I felt fine. 2 weeks later, I could have gone for a hard run and been fine, but my nervous system wasn't ready. And so looking at HRV, looking at some of the inflammation markers, to think your whole body has to be back to be able to push again. We only get one body, so we have to really look after it. And for me, it was that the recovery to do easy running was fine, but to really start pushing myself again, I need to leave it a little longer than I think.
Right. So the next question is from Sundar, again, a senior mentor from the Hyderabad community. How can local running groups adopt SheRaces guidelines? Not just the big marathons, but the local running clubs. I've heard about Couch to 5K program focusing on the inclusivity aspects. Any others? That's the question.
So the SheRaces guidelines are for races, not for clubs, technically. But there's a lot of read across you can have. First of all those running clubs that put on races can use the guidelines because, as I've mentioned, they're so simple that they're designed that any grassroots kind of 5K can use the guidelines and make sure they're careful about the pictures they're using and how they report the race data. So that's very, very easy. Within the clubs, it's all about having women at the top. Basically, there's women on the board, women looking at things, especially women-only running groups. And many women like running in a mixed group, but sometimes we like running to start just with women. And especially running is like our social life, and it's a way sometimes to discuss some of the topics like menopause that is hard to kind of discuss when there's men around, or pelvic floors. So making sure you've got that women-led side of the club that have the female running groups with female run leaders, or even in the mixed groups, making sure you have some female run leaders. Pacing is so important. The number of run events in London that I've been to that says we're inclusive pace, and then the slowest pace is like a 10-minute mile. That's not slow. That's not a slow pace. They wouldn't have an 11-minute, 12-minute. So when you're looking at paces, making sure you have, everyone's told that they won't be left behind, and that you really are pace inclusive, because a lot of people start running by run walking. And that's a great way to start. And I walk in almost every race I do. I love the walk breaks. I love seeing a hill I can walk on. But thinking about women, and I think getting the advice of women and saying what would make it better for them. And if you ask women in the right way, they will tell you.
Okay, the next question is, when you broke the 48-hour treadmill world record, you logged over 370 kilometers while facing absolute physical and mental monotony. How do you micromanage your mental pacing?
So I did this record live at the National Running Show in the UK. So there were 30,000 people during the day coming past and saying hi. So during the day, there was a lot going on, probably too much going on. It was really overwhelming. But I think in a normal event, I love the fact I can switch my brain off. And the micromanaging, it's like a form of meditation. I'm not very good at staying still. So I think running is my moving meditation. And for me, it's how I close down all the tabs in my brain, and just kind of focus on basic things. But if we think about kind of the big challenge, I break things down. I have a maths brain. I love numbers. And so breaking every race down into kind of, this aid station is this distance, and I'll try and run this pace, and this is what I think it will be. And this next part is this many meters up, this many meters down. Following it on my watch, looking at the pace per mile, numbers, just numbers. And that keeps my mind really busy. If I've got a longer race, I like to take a problem into the race, especially a training run. Is saying something I'm trying to work through in my brain. I don't know how to fix it. Running can give you that real mental clarity. So that's something else I try and do, is kind of have a couple of things to think about, to go, maybe this is a good time of the race. I can work out, what I want to do in my career, or even where we should go on holiday, or this problem with a child, like what I think they should do. Running is just a great way to unpack everything.
It is. What would your advice be to women returning to running after childbirth?
Well, I think the first thing is try and get a checkup if you can, a pelvic health checkup. There aren't enough pelvic health therapists, sadly, but if you can, it's great. There are return to running guidelines that the UK government have that you can download, that my own physio wrote, and they're phenomenal. And they take you through checklists of what you can do, lots of different exercises to get really, really strong. But the main thing is, I think signing up to an event is always a great thing to do. Like putting that date in the diary, maybe it's 6 months after you have a baby, maybe it's 12 months, and work towards that, but not neglecting your strength. And I think that's a mistake women make, especially when we go over 30, we're losing muscle mass, we're losing bone mass unless we strength train. So for me, I've learned this the hard way in the last few months that I'm now 44 and I have to strength train 3 times a week to make sure I don't get injured. And I want to be running when I'm 70. And that's my goal is I want to be, running around after my own grandchildren. And strength training is just as important as running training, sadly. It's less fun, but we have to do it.
True. Okay, another question. How can men become better allies in creating welcoming running communities? This is for all the men out there.
It's a great question. And I love the amount of men that have written to me after they've read my book. Like they bought it for their wife. Their wife has read the book and then they're like, it's about running. I'll read it too. And what they've learned. I think firstly is being an active bystander. And there are lots of things that happen to women where we don't feel safe, where men are, if a man's running at night and they're dressed in black, or they run behind you and they don't say, hi, I'm okay, I'm here, I'm going to pass you, or they pass you closely, thinking about how you as a man can make a woman feel unsafe. Men don't realize, and it's not, of course you don't realize because you're not the one being made unsafe. So have the conversations with the women in your life to say, how do men often make you feel unsafe? And be the guy that runs in the bright clothing, that waves, that smiles, that makes you feel that you're not a threat. If there's someone else, another man making a comment in some way, think, would he have made that comment to a man? Challenge them, challenge other men on their behavior. It's only when men speak up for us sometimes, because it's quite hard often for a woman to say, hey, that's not acceptable thing to say. But really always think kind of where there's a decision to be made, have we checked what the women think of this? Because sometimes, especially if we're a minority on a decision-making table, we don't always speak up. And just think twice about, does this work equally well for men and women? And if it doesn't, then change it somehow. I love how so many men have just gone, that my book and the guidelines have just opened their eyes as to how women experience the sport differently. And they're like, I want to fight to make sure that you have equal rights because, we want to be in races with more women. It's a better event when there's a better mix of the sexes. So there's a lot to do. I think saying, some men go, well, it's not me. I don't do that. So I'm not part of the problem. But you can be part of the solution.
Sure. What has been the most rewarding change you've seen as a result of the SheRaces movement?
I think personally for me, it's the pregnancy deferrals. I think we had the stats for London and it's been about 3,000 women in the last 4 years. And especially London, which is a race that people try to get into for years in the ballot, or they have to get a time. And me personally knowing what that feels like, and to think that there were 3,000 more women that got that opportunity is so overwhelming that I just know what that feels like. I mean, I think it's incredible to see it go global. I think it's when I get a call from a friend go, this race has just put these policies in. We've just seen kind of everything change. And they say it's because they've read the guidelines. And some races are credit and get it officially. Some go, actually, that's just a great idea. We'll do these things. But for me personally, I think it's the welcoming the mothers back to the start line and all the women that message and say, this got me back after having a baby and back to who they were before, who they want to get back to. And yeah, that's really personal. So I think it's got to be pregnancy deferrals.
What role can employers play in supporting active lifestyles for women?
Oh, that's a great question. I think shower facilities and ability to go running on your lunch hour, and being able to maybe be a little bit more flexible with work, especially for mothers. For me, I drop my kids at school and then I train and then I work a little bit later, and that works really well. Active lifestyle means different things to other people. You could allow people to have walking meetings, allow people to work from home. so they can get their gym session in. Thinking about the employee as a holistic package rather than someone who turns up to a desk. And when we're healthier, then we're less likely to have sick days and we'll be mentally happier as well. So I think being as flexible as can be, and certainly putting these corporate challenges on, where you all kind of get together to do something, it's a great way to team build and a great way to keep your employees active.
A healthier employee is definitely going to be a more productive employee too.
Yes.
So finally, what message would you like to leave with young girls, mothers, race organizers, volunteers, and everyone working to make sport more inclusive?
I mean, the big thing is thank you, and it makes a difference. I think sometimes I feel that I'm talking about period products and really small things and like, is this going to change the world? And we know that it does. We know that sport for women, sport for girls that play sport, that are active, go on to be CEOs. And we go on to play that bigger role in society, that we go on to be stronger people, that we go on to be stronger mothers, and we can then play a bigger part in our communities. So it's not about just going for a run. It's about far more than going for a run. And every single one of us can make a decision that impacts hundreds of thousands of people. I talk about a woman that has a bad race that says, I didn't like this race because of this, it wasn't inclusive, I'm not going back. If that one woman talks to the race director and tells them, that one woman could change that event for the thousands of women that might take part in the future. So it does make a difference. You might not want to go back, but you could help change that. And we all have so much ability to move kind of our sport forward. So it's a big thank you to everyone working, and all the race directors that are taking the guidelines, and every athlete that is just saying, I am going to just help that event be a bit better for women.
Today marks more than a webinar. It marks a commitment. Every woman deserves an equal opportunity to race. Pregnancy should never mean losing the opportunity to participate. Today's conversation reminds us that inclusion is not an initiative, it is a mindset. The NMDC Hyderabad Marathon's association with SheRaces reflects our belief that every runner deserves the opportunity to participate with confidence, dignity, and support. Our vision extends beyond organizing a world-class marathon. We aspire to help shape a future where Indian road races set global benchmarks for safety, accessibility, and inclusion. On behalf of Hyderabad runners, our volunteers, partners, and the entire running community, thank you, Sophie, for sharing your experiences and for inspiring meaningful change around the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you for doing the guidelines. It's amazing. It really is amazing.
Thank you.